So let me start and preface like my role with this. I was invited into this work with reparations, and make it clear, local reparations, because we're very aware of the national model and all the different thought processes in reparations work. It's hard, it's multi-layered, it's complicated. It's history is telling what's happening, and because we've been talking about history for reparations for the last 150 years, that's all we've been doing is talking about it. There's been HR 40 has been on the desk at Congress for since 1980s. So I think in this day and age, especially the younger generation, they're tired of a wait and see. The studies are already done. They want to see action. They don't want to see kumbaya. They want to see action. I get that, and the thought process with this, especially with the leadership of our aldermen and other leaders in the community saying we need to do something. Let's surround ourselves with people that are about doing something and not just talking about it. But they knew, especially with reparations, we knew we needed to document things. And so city officials, aldermen, and other people in the community started contacting my organization, Shorefront. And what we do is we document and collect and archive the African-American experience on Chicago's suburban North Shore. So I've been doing this for 25 years as my avocation. So I donate my time to do it. I'm sitting in the office where Shorefront started. It now has its own space elsewhere because if I had all this archival material at home, my wife would probably leave me. so so over the course of time, I've come across reports, studies, things that deal with race relations in the city of Evanston and the North Shore, and I was distilling a lot of that information and telling the narrative, the true narrative of Black life in the suburban North Shore area. We weren't just domestics and servants; we were entrepreneurs. We built churches, started clubs and organizations. We made an impact not just locally, but nationally and globally, and all throughout our history. And we have people that came from Evanston that have done wonderful things in this nation that, for the most part, when you read their bio, they always say, I'm from Chicago. I'm like, no, you're from one of the suburbs. So we always make that distinction. And so we could say now that, actress Tina Lifford in Queen Sugar came from Evanston. In fact, she lived 2 doors away from me where I live right now. So it's a small community. It's half a degree of separation. We all know each other. I am not originally from Evanston. I'm a newcomer in Evanston. So my endeavor getting into this was met with some resistance to like, who are you to tell our history? And I always make it clear, I am not the historian. You guys are the historian. I'm just trying to put this piece together. So with that collective knowledge I've been gathering over the last 25 years, the city came to me to ask, what has the city of Evanston done that directly affected the Black community? And I worked with a colleague of mine at another institution, and we started putting together a report, just combining all these things that we found over the course of time into one document that it's a living document because we're always adding things to it, of the policies and practices that the city of Evanston knew about, condoned, and supported in whatever way. So we can't say, for example, that Evanston adopted Jim Crow and followed Jim Crow policies because you can't find anything in the books about that. But they did adopt the lifestyle of Jim Crow. They didn't have to put in the books. They just, by leadership, and those who are in leadership roles can prevent people from fully participating in Evanston society. So we had segregated beaches. We couldn't do integrated ball games at the public parks. We had a de facto segregated school. We had a separate YMCA. We had a separate hospital. And it was known with all the interviews I've done, it was understood from the Black community that you normally just don't go downtown Evanston. If you have to go down there, just get what you need and then leave, because we have our own community. So those things were, and students in school, especially in the 30s and 40s, the height of Jim Crow, teachers, openly said, it's understood that a Black cannot earn an A. So those things were prevalent all throughout Evanston. So that's an example of how Evanston affected the Black community and barred them from doing things simply by, the masses controlling it all. So with housing, I started noticing a pattern of housing in Evanston where after 1900, where most of the Black community was being pushed into one area of Evanston. So early Evanston before 1900, the Black population lived everywhere. And after 1900, you started seeing reports in the newspapers and discussion, headlines saying the Jim Crowing of Evanston, or hat in hand, Evanston should bar Jim Crow. There's a Negro population growing over here. How can we get rid of that and move them to another suburb? So all these articles were popping up about these things, and other things related to Jim Crow, segregated movie theaters. Movie theaters are barring Blacks from getting movie theaters. Trolley cars are barring Blacks from getting on board. They have to sit in the back. All those things that we associate with the South was also happening here in Evanston and in the northern communities. So with the advent of real estate agencies starting to steer Blacks in one area of Evanston, then later supported by the federal government study of of housing and land using the Hope maps that created the red line maps. And in current times, there's a commission, the Evanston Equity and Diversity Commission, that brought in an exhibit called Undesign the Red Line a few years ago. And that showed the national model redlining. And they asked Shorefront to put together a localized exhibit on redlining in Evanston. So I put one together for that. My background is graphic design and exhibit design, so I can do these things. um, and I used my historic knowledge and the resources that I had to create this exhibit. And that really hyper illustrated what Evanston was doing and how it used that Hope map as a guideline for how they segregate the community. So if you look at an old map of Evanston and see the Fifth Ward, which is the historic Black community in Evanston, and overlay that with the Hope map and the redlined area, they overlay right on top of each other. And the red line came with the color coding of those maps. The color coding was blue, yellow, green, and red. Red being the most undesirable places. And they're also tagged by letters and numbers. So A through D. And that red line area is labeled D. And the instructions with that and the guidance with that, that banks and real estate agencies use, it says, do not invest in this area. This area is predominantly Negro. So it's not a good investment. So then banks would not loan in red line areas, no development in red line areas, or if there is development, it's about relocation of the Black community for new development to make it a new A zone or a B zone or an industrial park. So time and time again throughout history, you see Black communities being raised for anywhere for parking lots, shopping malls, highways, whatever conveniences that are beneficial to the white community, thus eradicating Black communities. So with Evanston, that has stood there or stood there for the test of time. It created the de facto segregated school. It created, all these areas of inequities. So with this push with utilizing recreational cannabis marijuana tax to fund an idea working toward reparations on a very local, hyper local, limited model, see what works and what doesn't. We're trying to put things to practice. If we were to do this and offer some benefit to the community for some repair, it's not perfect, and I think we all know that it's not perfect. But I'm in the mindset of you got to start somewhere. But what has done recently is that what Evanston is doing is really causing a lot of cities and towns and villages and states to really look at reparations now and do some serious work toward that. And we have enough critical mass in doing that. We have 100, 200 cities doing that across the nation. It's going to force the federal government to do something.
Yes, that makes me so excited. Dino, I really want to respect your time. And I thank you again for just dropping by and sharing your wealth of knowledge. Before I let you go, though, is there any final thought that you feel like would be important for real estate agents, brokerages, those that are on this side of the fence to know, to do, to be a part of?
Here's what would really be helpful. And I know there's studies that have been done before, but the real estate agencies, and talent in real estate, start gathering data. Data is going to look ugly, but that data is needed for justification. There are still entities that are still using the Hope maps for real estate steering. So we need to call that out. Um, I think there's the National Realtors organizations trying to take steps toward that. They need to be a little bit more forceful and open with that, and hold truth to what has happened in the past. Because if we don't recognize that, then we can't go forward. We're still living a lie. So we have to be brutally honest that, well, this was really messed up. Here's what we did as an industry that helped perpetuate this wealth disparity in the United States. And it's affecting everyone. Poverty costs everyone. It's not a moneymaker generator. We're actually losing money, and we're losing talent. We're losing power. Um, if we want to be the strong country that we espouse to be, stop holding people back.
Well said. Thank you, Dino, again so much for your time.